Happy Devil's Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 204, titled Fighting for First. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Nick Villano of Pucks and Pitchforks.com. Coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios in North Jersey and South Jersey. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. We got a double header of special guests. Coming to you shortly, Julie Stewart-Binks of SNY and NBC Sports. And from Substack, Sam Nestler as well. Sam is a good name to have when covering the New Jersey Devils. So I will applaud him and welcome him to the brotherhood, the family, a bunch of Sams like Sam Kassan. You got me, Sam Wu. There's a lot of Sam I ams. Nick, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. Sorry I was named Nick and not Sam. Can't win them all, Sam.
You can't win them all.
Neither can the Devils, apparently, after last night's performance.
Well, you know what? Those things happen. You know, goaltending wasn't there. Just a little sluggish. I think they're a little hangover from the Sunday night victory over the Carolina Hurricanes. But you know what? It's a learning lesson. Game 1 of the 3-game series with Tampa Bay goes to Tampa, but another game tomorrow for the New Jersey Devils. Game 2, 7 p.m. Eastern start. They can make it up.
And it's ironic because Greg Wyshynski of ESPN, famed Devils fan, shared that in a 1-8 format, the Devils and the Lightning would be playing in the first round right now. That would suck. I would hate that. I'd much rather play the Rangers than the Lightning right now. And maybe I'll eat my words. I don't even want to play the Rangers. I've told you, there's too much pressure on that. We haven't been to the playoffs in 5 years, and the first series we're going to see is against our number one rival, who's been SHIing all over us over the past 5 years since we can't make the playoffs and we've been in a full rebuild. That's what we have to get through. Emotions are going to be high. It's going to be stressful, but I'd much rather that than playing the Lightning. I just don't like how we match up with the Lightning. And maybe that'll change over the next couple of weeks, you know, because we played them 2 more times over, I think the next 1 week. Maybe it's 2 weeks, but yeah, you kind of get to see exactly how you match up with a team like the Lightning, who, here's the difference. Here's the difference in last night's game. The Lightning took advantage of every opportunity. They saw that they didn't have to get high danger chances to get it past Vanacek, and they threw the puck at him sometimes. And in the third period, they played keep away, which has been, you know, I'm going to write an article this week, Sam. Probably not tonight. I'm not going to have time tonight. But tomorrow I'm going to write an article about the 5 weaknesses that are going to bite the Devils in the playoffs. And the one that's really going to hurt them on the list is going to be the 2-on-1s. And the power play, and the goaltending. And actually this is the 5, because the other one's going to be letting them score at the very end of periods, which happened again last night. But the one that might surprise you is that they can't stop the game of keep away. This is one of the fastest teams in the NHL, but teams constantly are able to keep the puck away from them when they have a lead in the third period. Now, that has backfired on teams before, because the Devils have tied the game and they have won in overtime, but it's worked on other occasions. And it worked last night. Devils looked hapless in the third period.
4 unanswered goals by the Lightning. That last goal coming about 1 second left in the second period was definitely the dagger. It deflated the building, it deflated the team. You know, there's nothing you could really do about that. The Devils could have played better. I thought that the whole Tatar goalie interference was a little, I don't know. I know that's a judgment call, but it just seems like the calls always go against the Devils' way. It's never the other way around. So, it is what it is, Nick. But I will tell you this, though, that the Devils are still looking pretty good. Timo Meier, got his first real practice in today. And how much do you think that really plays into it? Because Bill Spaulding tweeted out earlier today that in his recollection that the last time the Devils actually had practice was March 4th.
Yeah. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. That's what the deal is this time of year. And that's the thing, is that might have played a role. Maybe the running gun schedule that they've been dealing with, it finally got to them, and they weren't feeling it, and you can't do that against the 3-time Eastern Conference champions. 3 times in a row. This team will make you pay. They don't have to bring their A game to win the game. The Devils do. I mean, that's the thing, is that the Devils played well in the underlyings, but I still never saw them, because we've seen them lose with better underlyings before, and they looked really dominant, and that just never really happened last night.
Mm-hmm.
They just never looked like the team that was controlling possession and getting the really good shots. They got good shots in spurts, and I think that might explain some of the underlying numbers, but they just didn't take advantage of opportunities. Timo Meier is phenomenal in underlyings right now, but terrible in execution. I can say it is that stark. He is in the right position. He is doing exactly what he needs to do on Jack Hughes' line. They have chemistry, but when it comes time to execute, I don't know if he's holding his stick too hard, but he's shooting it right in the glove, or he's shooting it right in the pads, or he's shooting it on the edge of his stick, or he's missing the net. There's just been, and then, even on the passes, it looks like he's holding the stick really hard. And he either passes it too hard or too soft. Just something is off. And the fact that he's getting in those good positions and Jack is finding him is great to see. But he needs to just take a step back, take a breath. I don't know I don't want to call it nervous, because that's, a negative connotation for an athlete, but he's definitely just tight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's something to that. I mean, when you're on fire, you're on fire. And look, it's going to take some time. I think he had some moments last night that he wasn't that bad.
I'm not saying bad.
Sorry, poor choice of words. He looked pretty he looked pretty majestic out there in a couple moves that he made. Okay, but we know that there's more that is going to come out of Meier, and I'll say this right now, that I'm if it wasn't for the Boston Bruins having their historic run, who would ever thought the Devils would be top 3 in the league? I mean, they could be number 1 if it wasn't for Boston just having this miraculous season. And
I mean,
but
they are.
Yeah, but they are. But because the point I'm trying to make is the Devils are breaking franchise records. We wouldn't even.
Yeah.
We were just hoping to be in the conversation by this time.
Yeah, we were hoping to be where the Islanders are.
Yeah.
And now look at us. This is great.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but it's pretty much guaranteed that this team is going to go to the playoffs.
Pretty guaranteed. What are they, 94 points?
94 points.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty. I mean, they'd have to lose out. I think are they 18 up on the Islanders? I think they're 18 up on the Islanders.
Yeah, they would have to run the table of losing.
I would have to be
with no points, by the way, no points. So. But you know what, Nick? As Devils fans, we should be just appreciative that we've got a great team. The future looks so bright right now. And, but at the same time, it's like you see on Twitter and social media, I mean, fans are still complaining left and right. But in terms of goaltending, which I probably want to talk about a little bit later, but the three goaltenders, in Lindy having to choose from, I right now in my mind, Akira Schmid is the number one goaltender.
That's fine. He's going to get sent down to the AHL.
I hope not, Nick. I hope not. But our next guest is in the green room right now, the virtual green room right now. Her name is Julie Stewart-Binks of SNY, NBC Sports, and also heard on SiriusXM. You can find her on Twitter at JSB_TV. Julie, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well, thanks. I appreciate you guys having me on. Sorry, my lighting is very off. I feel like I'm in some sort of like dark cave, but I feel like that's appropriate for a Devils podcast. So,
yeah,
absolutely.
Part of the ambiance, right?
Absolutely.
We have to set the tone, and I think you're doing a really good job of setting the tone with the dark background. So I've always really liked your work. I've been following you for a while, and just before we get into Devils hockey or hockey in general, I kind of want to quickly talk about your background and kind of how you got here. You have a very eclectic journey. There's, obviously you had built some fame on Barstool, and then you kind of went into stand-up, and then you went back to sports, and you were very famously somebody who wants to talk about hockey, and we love that about you. But, just kind of tell us, how did you get here? What was that like, that journey?
Well, I mean, how much time do you have? Because as you mentioned, it's been a lot of different lives at this point, but I'll give you the Cole's Notes version, I guess. Went to university in Canada wanting to be a sports psychologist, and then realized I didn't want to listen to athletes talk about their problems all day. So I decided to be a sports broadcaster, which was exactly the same thing. And my mom was a news broadcaster in Canada for CBC. And so she told me to go to the student radio station, volunteer, and there was no room at the radio station to volunteer. So I went to the TV station, worked with them while I was in college, and then ended up doing OHL in Canada. So I went and did my master's in England, came back, and then because they wanted me to change my accent, they were just like, you need elocution lessons to have a British accent. And I was like, well, I'm glad you're honest, because I feel like that'd be really weird to start my career being British, right? And so I came back to Canada and did OHL with the Kingston Frontenacs for a while, and then the Niagara Ice Dogs. Dougie Hamilton, I've tweeted about him before, with seeing his rise. Actually, when he was a young kid, he was friends with my brother. Him and his brother, Freddie Hamilton, played at my house when they were tykes, basically. And so I've watched Dougie in the OHL, and then him getting drafted by the Bruins, and really fascinating to kind of see his career flourish and seeing him play with the Devils. And then to working in Winnipeg at Fox Soccer Report, which was before on Fox Soccer Channel. So we did it in Winnipeg. It was on in the US. Went to then a smaller station to get more experience in Saskatchewan, where I did late night anchoring, reporting, literally everything across the world. I worked in a city called Regina, the city that rhymes with fun. That is where Connor Bedard plays. And I feel like I can say Regina now to people in the States, and they get it because of Connor Bedard, at least hockey fans. But I just never say it because everyone's always like, what? That name? It's just odd. Anyway, so then worked there, and then got to do an audition with Fox Sports 1 back in 2013. Never thought I would get the job in the entire universe of the world, but had a great time doing it. And then I was offered the job to come down, start FS1, really liked hockey, kept pushing to do hockey. So I did some Kings, Ducks, sideline, MLS, done some women's soccer, done pretty much every sport under the sun, and then moved to New York. As you mentioned, worked at Barstool, worked with CBS Sports, SNY, Fubo TV. I just was doing during the pandemic from this. This was my set for the last 3 years, it feels like. And that's pretty much what I've been doing. So it's been a lot, and I think that like my message to people is just like it's even when you get something or something's like good, like you always got to keep grinding. Like the grind just never stops, and you have to really enjoy the grind because as we all know in this industry, it's not like you get something and you're like, all right, like I'm Mike Tirico now, like my life is set. Like, no, it's always changing. And even for someone like him, like it's a roller coaster that you kind of are always riding. And once you understand that that's what the industry is like, you'll be fine to surf the waves. But if you think it's going to be smooth and that you're going to have like a job and it's going to be easy and you're going to have that forever, you'll be really rattled by it. So to younger broadcasters, I always tell them like it never stops. But the more reps, the more like time you're in the industry, the easier that journey gets. But yeah, it's you're always grinding. So just gotta love it.
That. I love that story. And it's funny because I do get some people who ask like, people who are in sports, this is obviously not my day job, but my day job for 10 years was in broadcast news. So it's funny that your mother is a news anchor because I deal with them for a very large portion of my adult life. But I, quote unquote, did the impossible and got my first job out of college in West Palm Beach, Florida, which is a 37 market. And the only reason I got it is because the news director told me that I wasn't going to get a job with him. And I said, okay, and still did an interview with him and then got the job. Like,
I love that.
Getting jobs in things that you're quote unquote, like you said with FS1, that you're not supposed to get is only because you're like, you have this irrational confidence to just go for it anyway. What do you have to lose? So most people, I say, all the people I know who got these sports jobs, young, old, anywhere in between, is just because they're like, I have nothing to lose, and you go for it. So I love that story.
You have to have that like delusional self-confidence where you're just like, I'm going to keep doing this thing because I believe in myself enough. And like, you can discern where you're like, I could be better in these areas. I'm going to learn more about these things. But a lot of the time it's like, it just depends on if someone likes you or not. And that can suck. And that can, usually it sucks because most people don't like anybody. But I mean, like for the most part, you're going to hear, I always tell a lot of even people I work with that have come up kind of quickly in the industry. I'll say, listen, like, there's a lot of no's. Like there's, what was it? Michael Smith, who was on ESPN News with Peacock now. He was like, we live for the maybes. Like you hear yes maybe 3 times in your life, 3 or 4 times. You always hear no. Maybe it gives you an opportunity, gives you like hope. And I was like, wow, that's like so true. Like I never hear yes. Like I always just like, is the door maybe marginally open that I'm going to try to keep going through? And people who aren't in the industry don't kind of understand that it's just like you're always grinding. And I try to tell some of my friends, or my mom kind of gets it, but still, I mean, she was a broadcaster in the 80s. Like it's very different, covering like Parliament, like not sports. And with the changing of social media and then sports gambling and like the proliferation of all these different entities, it's really good, but it's also just very precarious. There's no set path. So I just tell people like you just gotta keep going, like no matter what. And I mean, at some point, sometimes you see a door is closed and it's like, okay, like that path is not going to work out for whatever reason. And I usually try to get tangible feedback. That's what I try to tell people. Get tangible feedback, because then if anyone's going to give you it, because they won't normally, but if you can, okay, you got to work on your voice, or like you've got to not be so pushy, or you've got to be pushier, like then you can work on it. But other than that, it's literally like just knocking on every door that you possibly can and hoping that one of them opens.
I call it the Jason Terry theory. Jason Terry never took a shot he didn't think was going to go in, even though he was never the best guy on the court. You got to be Jason Terry. But I do want to talk about hockey. We could talk about this all night long, but I do want to talk about hockey.
It's a motivational speech podcast.
Yes. Hey, listen, I maybe I can do that too. But obviously the Devils were in the headline throughout the deadline process. Basically, since January, they were tied to Timo Meier, which has always been the biggest piece. Maybe not the biggest name because there's Patrick Kane and Tarasenko, but he was always the biggest piece because he's 26, already scored 30 goals. Look, he's got that size factor that the Devils need. So when it finally happened, when the reports finally came out, Meyer to the Devils is done, what was your initial reaction?
Honestly, it was just like I actually tweeted a GIF of Lizzo just doing the like it's about damn time because it felt like, and I'll take this from Elliot Friedman from Hockey Night in Canada on the 32 Thoughts podcast. He said this was one where we were all right. Like every single person that had an opinion who understood hockey, what the Devils needed, what Meyer could bring, the whole situation, it made sense. And so everyone was like, this makes sense. And it almost felt like it took longer than we thought. Like it felt like it was going to come earlier before the deadline in when things were sort of unraveling in different areas of different teams. And we're just waiting for this to happen. And I spoke with the source who had said that after the Rangers got Tarasenko, the Devils were even more motivated to get Meyer. And like that was even weeks past when we were like, this makes so much sense. Like it's so perfect. Just happen already. It's like the worst kept secret in the world, it felt like at that point. I would have been so shocked had Timo Meyer not gone to the Devils when I was hearing like, oh, Toronto's interested in all this. I'm like, what? No, like get someone from Toronto. I'm like, no, like that's not what Toronto needs. And also this is what like makes way more sense for the Devils. So it made a lot of sense, and I think that it's a great addition going forward. I think it's to a team that was already doing really well, and to add an incredible piece like this, it's only going to help going forward in the playoffs.
So you're covering the Leafs and the Avs tonight. Huge game, obviously, two great teams. But after the Devils got Meyer, it seems like that they kind of crept in the conversation. A lot of people still don't have them. I see a lot of people talk. I saw Anson Carter say that the Islanders have a chance to beat the Bruins, but nobody mentioned the Devils. So what are your thoughts? Do you consider the Devils do you think that they're in that upper echelon of the league?
Okay, so first, I think that you want to be exactly where you said. As a Devils fan, you don't want to be in the conversation of who can beat the Bruins because that instantly adds pressure. As someone from Toronto, pressure is usually sometimes difficult for teams to deal with in the playoffs, and especially for a young team. So I think what you want is for no one to be talking about you, like the Tampa Bay Lightning. It was like, no one's talking about Tampa. They've been in the Stanley Cup final for the last 3 years. They've won 2 of them. And it was, during the deadline and beyond, we're all talking about the East, and Tampa was just like not one of those teams. And we thought, my boyfriend and I were talking about it, we're like, isn't it wild that a team that's like ranked 5th in the league is not even being discussed because the East is so strong? So when I look at it as someone who has a lot of PTSD over my hometown team being really good and not being able to get past the first round and having a lot of trouble with the Bruins, you do not want to be in the conversation. So that's good. You play it, lower expectations for a younger team. Who cares what the media is saying, right? Just let everyone have their new takes. And I think like a lot of that is like, how can we find a new angle to talk about a lot of this stuff? And with the Penguins and then the Islanders kind of like sort of getting into being comfortable, separating themselves from the rest of the pack in the wild card positions, I think you can then start like discussing those potential matchups. I think though you are making a very good point that like the Devils would be overlooked in terms of when we look at the East. Like the Devils are a team that is just 2 points out of being number 1 in the Metropolitan Division, where with Svechnikov's injury likely probably will put the Devils ahead. And you want to be in that number 1 position, you would imagine, versus being in the 2-3, right? Because although it is like a very fascinating psychology experiment of seeing like where would you rather be, but I think like you would want to be in that number 1 position to face one of the wild card teams, whoever that might be. And I think that like the reason why I would assume the Devils aren't getting their due right now is just because of the last couple of years not being in the playoffs, right? So it's just that like, okay, it's like a new car, right? You're like, I don't know if it's gonna go the distance because we haven't taken it on I'm making this analogy up as you go on, Improv analogies are usually like just what I go to and I always mess up. But we don't know if this car is going to be able to go across the country, right? It's new. Like we haven't tested it past a certain point. But I will end on sort of the note that I remember I was on SNY when the Devils beat the Rangers at the beginning of the year in January, like second or no, not third, because I came home from All-Star, or no, Winter Classic, whatever. One of those days it was on SNY at the beginning of the year. And it's like, this game is a real good turning point game in that, like, do you go for the second half of the season, like, can you go up and sort of handle the pressure and keep going and, like, this team flourish and really embrace their identity and embrace kind of being, like, these young guns that are going to work together and flourish underneath the spotlight? Or are you not going to be able to play meaningful second half of the season hockey? And they proved everyone wrong. I think a lot of people didn't think they'd be able to do what they're doing. And so if you've already proven everyone wrong the second half of the season, like, who's to say you can't keep proving people wrong in the playoffs? And I think that that's what's, like, good, is that mindset of, you don't have the pressure of expectations that a lot of these other teams in the East do. So that would be my take on, it's good to kind of be out of the spotlight and then just, like, strike when no one's watching.
So I'll mention one thing. Me personally, because you made it a point, and then it made me think about it, that if the Devils do win the Metro, they'll be facing the Penguins. And my wife is a Pittsburgh Penguins fan because she's from Pittsburgh, and she's 7.5 months pregnant. So I did the math in my head, and they would be playing when she's 9 months pregnant. So
Ooh.
I personally like sleeping in my bed. So I think I'm rooting against that. But that's neither here nor there.
Who knows, though? It could be the Islanders at that point, or, whatever happens.
I'll root for that.
It just seems like it's going to come down to the last game of the season with everyone.
I only have Islanders friends. I don't have to worry about being married to any of them. Before I let you go, I have to ask about Jack Hughes, because it's kind of just this, he's having this anomaly of a season. He might break all of the Devils records. He might literally get the goals record and the points record in the same year. What is your thought about his ascension this year? Is this now, like, what we're going to see from here on out? Is he superstar level? Is he up there with McDavid and Crosby and McKinnon and Matthews and all of them? Or are you still in wait and see mode?
Honestly, I just got to track back to the guy that I asked about him, who broke some headlines at the All-Star game, which was the one and only Wayne Gretzky. When I asked him, and to give some more context to this, was I saw him before the NHL alumni boat cruise, which I was hosting, and I asked him about, I said I was here for covering some of the tri-state area guys, and he goes, "Oh, the Devils are really good." He brought it up. He's like, "Devils are really good." And I was like, "Oh, you think they can keep it going second half season?" He's like, "Oh yeah." He said Jack Hughes is the only one able that can catch Connor McDavid. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, the great one is saying this right now." And I thought did he mean it in terms of skating prowess or whatever, is in points? And then he was like, "Oh, wow, having a Devils Rangers playoff series would be incredible." And I said, "I guess it depends on, like, what side you're on, as a former Ranger, Wayne, Yeah. But he was so excited talking about Jack Hughes. And I think, like, hearing obviously him say that, and then seeing the season that he's had, and then the fact that, he's injured and he's able to still put up 80 points. And I talked to him at the All-Star game too. I said, like, "What do you think about the great one saying this about you?" He's like, "Okay, well, it's obviously, like, really nice that he said that about me, but, like, Connor McDavid is a really good player." And, like, he was flattered, but also, I'm not there yet. Like, I'm not McDavid, I'm not Matthews yet, but, like, clearly he is capable of he is one of them. I think that, like, this is kind of what we expected, maybe too early when he was in the league. And then people probably, because when we have these such high expectations of guys coming into the league, and maybe we don't see them do it early on, we're like, "Oh, well, maybe they're just not able to do that." But him this season has been so exciting to watch. And that's, I mean, the cast that he has around him too has been incredible as well. And I think that's what a lot of people who don't watch the Devils don't realize, like the depth that this team has, that it's like, if Hughes is not scoring, like Heischer's there. You got Brad, who was like started off the year so strong, and Hamilton. You got like just so, you could just keep going on and on about, oh, of course, like Mercer, like all these guys that are putting up points like no matter what. And I think that's like the sneaky part where maybe our friends in Canada or on the West Coast or people will see that maybe don't watch the Devils as much. But I think Jack Hughes is definitely in the conversation with those superstars. I think he can definitely do it again and keep going. You know, we saw Austin Matthews have such a crazy season last year and then not be able to live up to it again this year. That was like going to be impossible anyway. But I think that this is just the start for Hughes. And especially if Wayne Gretzky saying that, I'm going to agree with Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, Wayne knows a little bit more than us. He might have a hard spot in our heart from the Mickey Mouse comment from back in the 80s, but since then he's been saying nice things about us. So we're okay with that.
I didn't realize, like, when I tweeted about it in the morning of the All-Star, one of the All-Star days, and then I went into a meeting, and my boyfriend's like, just want to let you know your tweets, like, being made into, like, boards, like, on networks that are being used from, because it's Wayne Gretzky that said something about Jack Hughes, like a specific player. He picked him out. I didn't ask him, what do you think of Jack Hughes? He was like, this is my opinion on Jack Hughes and the Devils. I was like, wow. Well, that says a lot. So
and that's why we're so excited to have you on the Let's Go Devils podcast. You're getting those awesome answers. Honestly, if you're not following Julie Stewart-Binks on Twitter, you're doing yourself a disservice. She's doing a phenomenal job. Funny and so knowledgeable. I love your tweets. This has been great. Thank you so much. Take a couple seconds or minutes, however long you want. Just let everybody know what you're doing. What are you working on that's going to be exciting? Where can people find you? The whole kit and caboodle.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I've really enjoyed getting to know the Devils fan base and going to games. I was at one recently against the LA Kings, which was a great game. I mean, they won in overtime. And then the fan base has been wonderful to me. And I love the vibes at the rink. Oh my gosh. I had no idea there were so many Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison, like Styx and Def Leppard and just my whole jam. It was like, my boyfriend's like, wow, this is like totally your whole vibe, like the Devils. I was like, thank you. But yeah, right now I've been doing stuff with SNY. We try to cover, making a point to cover all the teams in the tri-state area. Of course, we're in New York, but obviously we're talking Devils, we're talking Islanders. I do a segment called Around the Rinks with Binks. And we try to do that as many times as possible when Aaron Rodgers is, of course, not signing a contract with the Jets. We got bumped. And then I'm working on a new project. I can't announce it yet, but I'll be doing some more content coming up soon. Next week, I can say it, and we'll be working in the playoffs for someone somewhere.
Love to hear that, Julie. Whenever that comes out,
I'll be in and around.
We'll give it some social love. Make sure that everybody gets that up into their eyes.
You.
And if you're ever, we're doing a live podcast at American Whiskey, which is across the street from the Prudential Center, for the next Devils Rangers game. So if you and the boyfriend are going to the game, make sure you stop by, say hi. Well, what's the Sam? I always forget this. What's the new catfish? We used to give the reporters catfish at the old bar, but then the old bar closed down. So what is the new thing? Oh, it's the Taylor hamburger.
Yeah, the Taylor hamburger.
Yeah.
Julie.
So I don't know if you're familiar with Taylor ham. It's a New Jersey delicacy. Oh, it's if bacon and Canadian bacon had a child, that's Taylor ham. So
okay, well, I gotta try that one out then. Yeah,
come try it.
It's right across the street. It's very close to the Prudential Center.
Okay. I will definitely, we'll talk, and I'll, if I'm not there working it, I will be there having a good time watching and hanging out with you guys.
Julie Stewart-Binks, thank you so much for spending some time with us. We really appreciate it. We'll let you go back to your coverage. We'll have you on again soon.
Well, coverage. I'm just watching the game from my couch. I'm not sure.
Everything is
I've
covered.
been eating. My coverage is eating popcorn and watching. I can't tell what the score is of the Leafs Habs game, but probably not good.
It's all good. But thank you so much for spending some time with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Julie. That is Julie Stewart-Binks of SNY and NBC Sports. I'm inspired, Nick. I'm inspired.
That was phenomenal. That was phenomenal.
The first part of the interview about the yes and no, Doc Emmerich has said this on this podcast, that all it takes is one yes.
One
yes.
Honestly, Sam.
He had 47 no's before he had his first yes.
And he's a super inspiring story because he is somebody who's you gotta let the no's just roll off your back. And it's so hard. It is hard. You know, Sam, I know you've heard a lot of no's. You've been in this industry for a long time. I've been in broadcasting for a long time. I've heard plenty of no's. And listen, no's suck. They do.
They sting.
But you can't let the thought of a no evade a yes. And so many people who never make it in this industry or never try to make it in this industry, I know so many people who I went to school with for sports journalism that do a myriad of other things. Do you know, let me count. I know I went to school with probably 75 people who want to be in sports journalism, and I can think of 3 that stayed with it. And I'm not counting myself, obviously, because I don't consider myself a sports journalist. I've done a lot of sports producing, but it's just a little different.
Yeah.
But the people who make it are people like Julie who knocking down doors. People like Mike Tirico, and his story is so inspiring. And like she said, he's still dealing with these issues. You know, he goes to NBC Sports, and then somebody's in his way, and then they take this away, and but he's somebody who's so phenomenal that he just keeps going. You know, we talk about so many friends of the podcast who don't stop. And the fact that they deal with a lot of BS is what grinds them into this phenomenal broadcaster or hockey front office person.
Well, it makes you tougher. It makes you better, actually. You know,
I love those stories. I'm ready to run through a wall. Sam, I'm probably not going to bed till 2:00 in the morning tonight.
Well, yeah. Well, she got me all fired up, and for those that don't know, I mean, I've probably gotten 5,000 no's over the course of my career or whatever, if you want to say that. For most people, they know me as a Devils fan podcaster, but most don't know that I was the executive producer for NHL shows on Sirius for 10 years and internationally syndicated and all that and behind-the-scenes stuff. And you get no's all the time from sponsors, from guests. Sometimes you get chewed out. Sometimes you get chewed out by the league, which is never fun, even though it's not your fault. Or if somebody heard a statement on the show, which was completely false, you have to you get beaten up pretty good. But I think nothing compares 10 months without Devils hockey during the pandemic and have to talk about it with you, Nick, for 10 months. That was probably the greatest challenge. And ever since then, I look back to that and be like, well, if I could talk 10 months of Devils hockey with no Devils hockey, I could accomplish anything.
That was impressive by us. I gotta say, how often were you podcasting? Were you doing a lot of rumor reports?
I was
then? It feels like so long ago.
I was doing anything, even teaching Devils fans how to cut their hair during the pandemic.
Remember that one. That one was good.
I had to institute a hairstylist because I've never cut my hair before. It had been 3 months, and I still did it anyway. I didn't care. I absolutely didn't care. But what happened was we were able to get guests we would have never gotten because they were bored, and it was just and then when we got Ken Danico and Cam Jansen, it's intimidating on the other end. You're they think you think they're going to kill you, just because what you remember when they played. But I will say
never
though,
forget, not to cut you off.
Yep.
But I never forget Cangelosi coming on and being like, "Listen, guys, I don't usually do this live on the air. I don't usually do this, but I just want to connect with Devils fans, and that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. And that's something like, we've obviously circled Bill Spalding as somebody we'd love to get on the podcast, but you also have to understand that he's getting used to a nightly gig. It's not like he's, Cangelosi was a veteran. He's been doing Red Bulls games and Devils games for years. So Spalding, we're definitely going to push for him. He's somebody that people have brought up to me before. I'll push a little bit harder in the offseason just because, it's easier then.
Yeah.
It is easier when people have a little time off. And like you said, we got these huge guests. Didn't we get that's when we first got Stan Fischler, right?
Yeah, Stan
Pandemic?
Fischler from Israel, no less.
From Israel. We got to do all these really cool things. And you know what? I talked to a lot of people who said, like, us staying consistent, and it was the consistency things that kept a lot of people going. And I'm not saying we kept anybody going. I don't want to put that kind of pressure on us. But me doing the podcast kept me going. And just kind of gave me something to push for, and it kind of gave me some confidence to go after some of these bigger guests.
I've got countless emails and direct messages. Even now, like at American Whiskey, I get people coming up to me. If it wasn't for you, that 10 months, it's like, no. It was about us. It wasn't about me. It's just we had to do something, and we had to do it safely. But let's transition.
Our guest is here.
Yeah, our guest has been in the Andy Green room the entire time, and I'm excited about this guest. I'm excited about this guest because there are a lot of Sams covering the Devils right now. I'm one of them. There's Sam Kassan, and now there's Sam Nestler, a Devils writer on Substack. You can find him on Twitter at Sam Nestler. Sam,
I lost your audio. Other Sam. My Sam Wu. I can't hear you.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Sam, welcome to the program.
Sam Nestler, can you hear us?
You can't hear us. All right. Well, we'll have to figure that out.
Sam, if you put me solo, I'll let you go.
Let's see here. See, folks, this is live air. This is what happens. I don't know what happened there, but I've got audio from Sam. Let's try it again. Hold on a sec. Sam, you're on with Nick and Sam. How are you tonight? I don't think he can hear us.
Can he not hear us? Sam, we're talking. Do you hear us? I don't think he hears us.
I don't think he hears us either. Hold on a sec. Give me 1 sec, Nick. Why don't you fly solo, talk to social media?
I got this. Let me let's social media, Sam. Let's go on the good old Facebook. See, Facebook changed it again, so now I got to go into this. Steve Tardis. What happened, Steve Tardis? You're talking a lot in here. Michael Hi says hi. He's a little late, but he's here. Nice to see you, Michael. Steve Tardis says, I don't want the Rags, Toronto, or Tampa in the first round. Well, you would only get Toronto and Tampa if the Devils win the Metro, and one of those teams just have a devastating fall. So, Sam, I can't hear you now.
That was my fault.
Okay.
You know what it was? A mixed minus issue. That's what it was. So anyway, let's try this again. Our next guest I'm excited about because there's a lot of Sams covering the Devils. Hopefully this Sam Wu, doesn't screw it up again. His name is Sam Nestler. He's a Devils writer on Substack. You can find him on Twitter at Sam Nestler. Sam, for the third try, I'm sorry. How are you tonight?
I'm good, guys. Glad we got it figured out. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. And we talked to you a couple of weeks ago when you joined the Devils. You're part of us now. Can you, before we get into kind of the Devils talk and the questions, I'm curious what motivated you to switch? You were covering the Dallas Stars for Substack. You kind of switched allegiances. I'm gonna say you're part of us now. What motivated that decision? What give us a step-by-step guide of how Sam Nestler is now covering New Jersey Devils hockey.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm from New Jersey. Lived here from the age of 6 until I graduated high school and a few years after college as well. So I kind of bounced around to test out some places and live around the country. But in a way, I kind of felt that I'd always end up back home. My friends and family are all here. So working for the team that I grew up watching and living in the place that I grew up is a pretty sweet deal for me. And all I heard all year about once I started talking about moving back here was how great Devils fans were and how passionate the fan base was. So I'm truly excited to be here.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you on, Sam, and I feel like we're going to be fast friends, being both Devils fans and working on the team. So, what a season to jump on the bandwagon. Not that you're a bandwagon fan, but you know what I mean, jumping on the writing bandwagon. But I got to start with a negative. I got to jump right into what's going on here because that's just kind of how we look at it. So the Devils coming off a pretty, and you know what? I think it's because I sent you the topics right after the game. I was probably a little angry about it, but we're just gonna follow this lead. I'm a little worried about Vitek Vanacek. I'm not gonna lie to you, Sam. I don't know if you could win a series against whether it's the Rangers or the Penguins. The Islanders, I would be a little less worried about. I'm just not worried about the Islanders. I think the Devils have too much speed for them. But when I'm looking at the Penguins, when I'm looking at the Rangers, when I'm looking at teams like that, I'm a little worried. What's your thoughts on Vitek heading into the stretch run?
Yeah, you're right to be worried, and the numbers back your side of it there. I think he was in the 800s in save percentage for 7 or 8 games outside of his shutout against Carolina. So the numbers are not good. The big question, and I think Lindy has backed him every step of the way when we ask and see if he's at all worried, is it him or is it defensive breakdowns? Because specifically last night in Tampa, there were a ton of odd man rushes, shorthanded. Mm-hmm. Killorn had a week to shoot it. Kucherov and Point looked like they were practicing without a defense. It just looked like it could go either way. But in the end, you feel like you need your goalie to make one of those saves. And whether that's the shorthanded goal, whether that's the one that put the lights out early in the third, whatever it is, you need your goalie to make the saves. And he was making them early on. So I think the question is now, is he getting tired? I mean, this is his career high now. He's played 43 games this year. He only had 42 in his previous career high. So, that wall does exist, and it really is a big question right now. And I'm not sure which side I fall on how much I believe Lindy and his confidence in the goaltending and just believing it's a defensive thing, and how much I see that they need a big save and they're not really getting it.
And here's the thing, is that this is the same defense that it's been since December 1st. November was an anomaly where they were the best defense in the league, as well as the best offense in the league. But you have Damon Severson playing really well. Dougie Hamilton is the second best offensive defenseman in the league behind Karlsson, I would say. And then you got John Marino and Jonas Siegenthaler, who are still both playing very good defensive defenseman roles. But the way the Lindy Ruff system works is that you ask your defensemen to do more. You ask them to forecheck more. You ask them to be more part of the play. You don't ask them to stay in back much. You don't ask them to be safe. So I'm confused at these comments from Lindy Ruff where he says the defensemen need to make plays or the defensemen need to be safer, or, the Killorn one is a little, I agree with him there. When you're in the defensive zone, you need to play better. But the 2-on-1s are a part of the Lindy Ruff system. I'm sorry. That's just the coaching. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sam. Is that something you're seeing too? Because I've been looking at this for 3 years.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's funny to think about the 2015-16 Dallas Stars were the same teams essentially under Lindy Ruff as well. And they scored a ton of goals. They won the Western Conference, but Kari Lettinen couldn't make a save, and they ended up losing in the second round when that team could have gone pretty far because nobody could stop them on the offensive end. So you're absolutely right. And I think that's why the key is you need your goalie to make a couple of those saves, because those are going to happen if you're going to play the style that the Devils play.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So looking ahead, I think I counted 15 games left. The Devils are down 2 points to the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Carolina Hurricanes have a game at hand. But the Hurricanes lost Andrei Svechnikov, their best offensive player. They still have a very talented team, a very scary team. A lot of things are really going well for them, but they haven't been playing great outside of last night's win. And there have been cracks, and the Devils showed those cracks in a 4-0 just demolishing on Sunday. What's your thoughts? Are you do you consider Carolina a threat in the stretch run? Like, where are you on Carolina right now?
Yeah, certainly still a threat. As you mentioned, they have a plethora of skilled players. They have one of the best coaches in the NHL, and they seem to play a style that just frustrates absolutely anybody they play against. So still a threat, but in my opinion, I think this opens the door for New Jersey to win the division. I don't have a ton of confidence in the Devils overcoming them, but when you lose a player like that, now of course they go out and they beat a good Winnipeg team right away without Svechnikov. So this could be that they don't miss a step, but in my opinion, you're missing a pretty big threat and a creative player, which I think is a key for them. And I believe that it opens the door for New Jersey to really win this division and have a step up on the competition than they did, 3 days ago before the injury.
And you love that. I mean, I hate that he's hurt because he's a star player in this league. You don't ever want to wish for injuries, but it does feel a little bit more real for the Devils when it comes to the Metropolitan Division. Now, you jump into the season, kind of catching up what being from New Jersey, I assume you followed the Devils for most of the year. What has been most impressive about this team?
Yeah, I think I want to say depth is the first thing that I was underrating when I looked at this team, from a distance. I think that you look at the Devils and you think, wow, that their top line is so good. Wow, Jack Hughes can score. You even look at, Dougie Hamilton, as you mentioned, and his creativity and production that he's had this year. But then I don't think people realize that are outside of this market that they can go all four lines. And you look at look at Sharangovich, he's getting scratched and he's got 12 goals. I think a lot of teams in the league would happily have a 12-goal guy on their fourth line, even if he wasn't playing well defensively. So that's the kind of depth they have, and especially now with Timo Meier and a very underrated addition to Curtis Lazar, because he'll bring energy, he'll bring grit, he brings a lot to the team. And I think the more people they can bring in that have experience, and have that ability to overcome adversity. Andre Palat's a perfect example of that. Obviously, he's overcome a lot of adversity, going to the final 3 years in a row, winning 2 of them. And I think that those things are key for them. So that depth is what's really surprised me. It feels like all four lines can kind of go out there, and especially if Miles Wood is playing to his potential, they can really score, and they can defend, and they can play both sides of the ice.
We have an interesting comment from the Facebook comments. Michael Hay says Carolina and the Devils can't catch Carolina, but he's worried about their style of play in the playoffs being a bad matchup for the Devils. What are your thoughts on matchups in the playoffs? Are you a person who thinks best team's going to win, or do you think that style matters?
I think style definitely matters. I believe that, is he talking about Carolina being a tough matchup for New Jersey?
Correct. Yeah. Carolina
okay. Yeah.
So playoff matchup.
Yeah. So of course it's hard to say it because the Devils just, like you said, walloped them 4-0 a couple of days ago. But I think that they are one of the tougher matchups. I would much prefer the Devils played the Rangers than the Carolina Hurricanes, because the more open style of a team like New York, even Pittsburgh, teams like that favor the Devils because they can play their style, versus Carolina. You even saw it a little bit in that 4-0 game. There were times when the Devils just looked jammed up and nothing happened for a whole lot. Now, Carolina didn't have their second part of their game where they were able to turn that into offense. So that kind of put the whole squash on their game plan. But they're able to really pack the middle. They don't let guys like Jack Hughes circle the zone like he's so good at and things like that. And I think that definitely favors them. Now, that's not to say that the Devils won't have success against them, but I do believe that the style matters. And I believe that, in my opinion, if I was a coach, I'd be looking at those type of matchups and saying, who would we prefer to play, and is there a way we get that?
Absolutely, and I agree. I think you can't play for style. You've seen that happen where teams kind of try to set themselves up for the good matchup, and you kind of saw it in 2012 where everybody was trying to play the Panthers, and the Devils played the Panthers, and that went 7. And no other series went 7 for the Devils on their way to the Stanley Cup final. So, anyway, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm so fond of that 2012 team that I get lost in its eyes. But speaking of the playoffs, speaking of styles, speaking of the Devils, as we head into postseason season, what are you most worried about when it comes to the Devils?
I honestly want to say goaltending. I know we started off with that, but to me, when you look at the team, you really hope that the top line is playing to their potential. That's a huge key. They've been a little quiet now, calming down a little bit, I'll say, for the last week or so. But in terms of any weakness, you have to look on the defensive end, because like you mentioned, I could easily say defensive lapses are a concern. And with a team like, Dallas or a team like Carolina, those lapses would be a huge red flag. We need to fix this because this is what we play for. This is how we play. But with the Devils, like you mentioned with Lindy, that's not what they play for. They play to play well enough in their defensive zone to clog up somewhat of the neutral zone and to push and push and push and push their defenders back and apply the pressure. So for me, the goaltending needs to make those saves because there are going to be those breakdowns. And right now, I'm not sure how Vanacek holds up in the stretch and the playoffs. I'm not sure who the backup is. There's a bunch of question marks on now. Who does Blackwood come back and play, even though he was mediocre when he was in? Is Schmid actually ready? So I think there's more question marks in the crease than anything else.
I actually wrote about this, I think a week ago, about, Vanacek might be a problem. And I wouldn't be surprised if Blackwood is the starting goalie in the playoffs. I'm just not. I'm not going to be surprised if that happens because Blackwood was playing well before he got injured. But then he got injured again. And that means he has to, play back up. So I wouldn't put money on it. But if you told me that you had a crystal ball and a month from now, Mackenzie Blackwood was leading this team in the playoffs, it's this league is strange. And Lindy Ruff is not loyal at all. Unless you're the BMW line, he is not a loyal coach in the terms of playing time. I'm not saying that he'll, leave guys out in the street, but he's definitely somebody who, if you're not playing well, you're not going to be in the lineup. Even if you are playing well, like Nathan Bastian has been, he's not going to, but he has a rhyme or reason in his head, and we've seen him ride the hot goalie. And we've seen him do it in years where it means nothing. He's going to do it in the playoffs. He's going to figure out which one of these 3, and I'll even add 4, because if Nico Dawes gets called up after the AHL season and he looks good, he's going to get a shot. He does not care. He wants the guy who he thinks is going to win, and that could be Blackwood, that could be Schmid, that could be Vanacek. Maybe Vanacek figures it out. Could be Dawes. Probably not Dawes, but again, nothing would surprise me right now.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned Blackwood because I didn't really realize he also doesn't have any playoff games. So, normally when you're thinking you got a 22-year-old and I believe a 26-year-old, you're thinking, all right, at least this guy's been there and done that. But between the 3 goalies, they have 3 playoff games, I believe. So you're absolutely right. You ride the hot hand. You don't have that fallback of experience, which maybe is a good thing. Maybe that decision, has hurt teams in the past where they've fallen back on a veteran goalie just because he's been to the playoffs when they had a hotter guy doing it. You've seen the teams that have switched goalies and won a Stanley Cup with them, like a Marc-Andre Fleury and Matt Murray situation. So I think you're absolutely right. And I think that I mentioned this the other day. I believe Blackwood is going to get his shot when he comes back. It's not like they're just going to drop him and waive him or something when he comes back from injury. He's going to get a chance. He just has to take it. He cannot be the Blackwood that that's in the 800s and struggling, he needs to play like he was for those few games before he went out.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the point, is that Blackwood does he'd have to wow Lindy Ruff, but he's done it before. He's just such a weird player. Before I let you go, I want just your quick opinion on Jack Hughes. Actually, you know what? No, scratch that. I want one last opinion on Timo Meier. You'll be the last Timo Meier trade opinion that ever happens on this podcast. Sam, I'm putting a veto on the rest of your podcast. No more Timo Meier trade opinions after this. But I want to hear from Sam. What was your opinion right when the trade announced and then right after the return was announced?
I'm all for it. I really am. I think that Timo Meier is the type of player that can change a team when he's on his game. He's scored goals in every season, no matter how bad the team he was playing for. And he brings that grit. He gets the puck out of corners. He creates for other players. I think they need to find a spot for him. And I think we all knew that as soon as they got him, we're like, he could play on 3 different lines here. So, but for me, I was all for it. And I think that he's had a slow start expectedly. I mean, players that play in one system for a while always have a slow start on the other team. But if he finds his game, he was a huge addition this year, and I think he's well worth what they'll probably have to pay to keep him.
Do you have any thoughts on the return? Zetterlund, Mukmdulin, 2 firsts, and a Hoytuk?
Yeah, it was a lot. I mean, the list was huge. The trade was just endless. It just continued every 20 seconds. There was something else happening. And I think Zetterlund hurt for a lot of fans. I believe that people have a ton of confidence in him, but you have to look at the other options that were out there. I mean, you have to imagine that San Jose was asking for those names that the Devils were just never going to give up. So I think if Meier it continues to be what he is, it's a win-win for both sides.
Absolutely. So Sam Nestler, new to the Devils coverage. Some people might not understand the Substack, so take a second, kind of explain like how people can subscribe to you, how people can see your work, and then kind of promote some of the work that you have coming up.
Sure, yeah. Substack is awesome. I use it for all of my different media. So you do articles. Articles go directly to the subscribers' inbox, so you can read them both in your email, and then obviously go to the website to read the archives and old posts. I'll also do quick podcast episodes, from the rink and things like that on there. Video, so plenty of options. But just go to samnestler.substack.com and you can subscribe. There's a free option as well as a paid version that has some extra benefits and a lot of good stuff. As you mentioned, I'm new here, so I'm rolling out everything I have for the final stretch here. And especially if you're a hockey nerd and you love the X's and O's and breaking down plays, I'm your guy.
We love to hear that. We love the analysts. We have a lot of the advanced stats people come on who are smarter than us to explain why they're smarter than us. So it sounds like we got another person doing that. So next time we have you on, we'll have to throw some math at you and hope you can walk us through that. Sam, I really appreciate you coming on. Did you have anything specific coming out that you wanted to plug?
No, I would say if you want to check out the article I released this morning, I just spoke about the goalie situation and took a little bit of an interesting take on it. So go ahead and check that out.
Love to hear that, Sam. Sam Nestler, Devils writer, new Devils coverage. We had no beat reporters last year. Now we have 1 million beat reporters. It's what happens when you're good and people love you. Sam Nestler, Substack, check him out. We appreciate you having you coming on, and we will definitely have you on again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. This was fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Sam. That is Sam Nestler, Devils writer on Substack. You can find him on Twitter at Sam Nestler. What a night, Nick. What a night.
I'm tired, man.
Yeah, you were doing all the interviews. I was just behind the scenes. I only have one job to do, and I kind of screwed it up there with the mixed minus issue. But
I kind of wish we had a West Coast game. I kind of wish the Devils were going to be on tonight because this one got me fired up. I love all our guests, but tonight got me fired up.
Yeah. Do you think Julie would really come to American whiskey?
I don't know, man.
I mean, the music she likes, that's what we play.
Yeah,
At American
exactly.
Whiskey. You know?
What you had to do, what we learned when we had Erica on, is that if you have the DJ, name's escaping me. What's your DJ's name?
Oh, DJ Shelley?
DJ Shelley. If you had DJ Shelley ask these people, if we had DJ Shelley on the State of the Fan address just to invite people to American Whiskey, a lot of people would be at American Whiskey.
Yeah.
I'm making James Nichols come. I'm just going to make him come. He's going to bring Ryan Novo. We're going to force them. They're going to just have to deal with it.
All right. And maybe they'll have
Would
some
love to get Novo on again, but he's been a busy guy too.
They're all busy because the Devils are good right now. There's lots of stuff to talk about. The podcast is just, I mean, we see the numbers of the podcast. I was texting you earlier today, things are good. Things are good. People are listening. People are watching and getting a lot of comments in the YouTube Live and Facebook Live and Twitter Live. So, everything's good. But Game 2 tomorrow, Devils and Tampa Bay Lightning. We have Game Day Live and Devils After Dark tomorrow. Should be good. We'll be on the big TV at American Whiskey. I think Shorts Guy may be there. I'm not sure if Beer Baron's going to be there. I'm not sure yet. But we'll tweet it out, whoever's there.
Fun.
Yeah. Anything you want to plug, Nick, before we go?
Yeah, so right now I'm working on the front page a lot lately, just kind of the fan-sided front page. I have the series going on, 3 strangest players in such and such a jersey. We got Steelers out, we got Patriots out, we got Eagles out, we got Cowboys out. There's a couple more. I'm working on the Chiefs tonight, so I expect the Chiefs one to be in the morning. And here's the thing. I'm going to find 3 players not named Joe Montana because that's just the easy one. I don't like the easy ones. I like to have a little bit of fun with it. And by the way, if I ever do a Jets one, Aaron Rodgers would definitely be on this list because this makes no sense to me. Sorry, Julie, that this weird story is kicking you off the TV, but I don't get Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. Everybody's all excited about it. Y'all have fun with Mr. Dark Space or whatever his name is. But right now on pucksandpitchforks.com, I wrote a piece last night, 5 players fighting for playoff minutes. There's a lot of players on this team. You're going to see a lot of rotations. You're going to see a lot of different lineups over the next couple of weeks, up until I'd say the last 2 weeks where Lindy Ruff just goes with this playoff lineup to get some chemistry. But he's still trying to figure it out. He's trying to figure out. I have no idea why Nathan Bastian's not in the lineup. He is playing so well, and they keep taking him out of the lineup. Whatever, neither here nor there. Go check out the 5 players I think are fighting for their playoff lives. Jersey Joe talked about some Devils players looking to break records. Vinny Parisi talked about history being made in one of the Devils' last wins. I talked about Jack Hughes' struggles. Jersey Joe, I talked about Vitek Vanacek and his struggles lately. There's a lot of things going on pucksandpitchforks.com, and I will say a lot more is going to happen after this week because I'm going to go ham in the paint. I know that's not the saying, but that's what I'm going to go ham in the paint. I am too old and fat to go hard in the paint anymore, but I will go ham in the paint. I'm going to write a ton of articles this week and next week because, first of all, I had to take a couple weeks off just to kind of get the fan-sided front page taken care of and realistically get my house taken care of. But now that everything is settled, back to writing like a madman.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad things are happening at your house. Whenever I'm working on a project, it takes year and a half?
That's the word on the street, Sam.
Yeah. Anyway, want to thank all those tuning in. Questions people are asking, like Ted, when's the next Woo Report? It's probably going to be on Friday because Thursday we've got Game Day Live. We've got Devils After Dark. If I can pull it off during the day to do a Woo Report, I will. So you may want to, stick around. I don't know if I could really pull that off. My schedule's kind of heavy. But
just do it Friday.
How about I just do it Friday, according to Nick? And What else? Yeah, just enjoy the game tomorrow. I can't wait for tomorrow because I get to talk to Vinny. I get to talk to Scotty. We could be radio shock jocks, Scotty and I.
There you go.
Yeah.
You could be his producer.
Yeah. All righty. Well, we're going to get out of here. Thank you. Go to pucksandpitchforks.com. Yes, pucksandpitchforks.com. Read Nick's articles. Read Vinny's articles. Read everybody's articles. Till next time, let's go Devils.